WC is not just a rapper who achieved global success. He is also one of the men who amassed enormous wealth and never hesitated to display the trophies of that success. But have you ever truly stopped and asked yourself what the homes of these stars actually look like? A mansion guarded 24/7 surrounded by a maze-like security system. A custom-built SUV prepared for the end of the world. Diamonds delivered to the estate every single week. Welcome inside WC's multi-million-dollar empire. In this video, you will explore the most luxurious mansions WC used to move beyond the peak era of gang life. A child raised in unrest. William LaShawn Calhoun Jr. was born in 1970 in Houston, Texas. But Houston was only a starting point on paper. His real childhood unfolded in South Central Los Angeles. And South Central in the late 70s and early 80s was not a place built for innocence. This was not a neighborhood where kids rode bikes until the streetlights came on and then went home. There, when the streetlights turned on, adults became alert. The sound of police sirens, helicopters circling the night sky, arguments spilling out on street corners. All of it was part of the atmosphere. No one needed explanations. If you grew up in it, you understood. South Central at that time was synonymous with poverty gangs and an invisible pressure constantly hanging over the heads of children. Many families were packed into small houses, limited income opportunities far more narrow than what television commercials promised. Areas labeled dangerous were not marked by rumor, but by crime statistics. For a child, that reality did not appear as charts or graphs. It showed itself in a mother's eyes when she heard an unfamiliar sound in the middle of the night. WC grew up inside that environment. He watched older teenagers get pulled into gangs as if it were the default path. 111. Neighborhood Crips were part of the street landscape he could not ignore. In neighborhoods like that, identity was not just a name on a birth certificate. It was where you belonged, who you stood with, and who stood behind you when something went wrong. There were streets where you did not have the privilege of staying neutral. If you did not belong to a group, you became an easy target. That was not dramatic language. It was the reality for many teenagers at the time. Growing up in that environment meant learning to observe before speaking, learning to read the room before reacting. The harshness was not only in the violence, it lived in the sense of limited choice. When schools lacked resources, when stable jobs were rare, when successful role models around you were few, you started to believe the future had already been written. Many people from WC's generation were trapped in that cycle. Some ended up in prison. Some disappeared from the music map before their names were ever established. South Central did not teach you how to dream. It taught you how to stay alert. It taught you that survival came first. And in that environment, a child who managed to stay focused on something positive was already an exception. WC's childhood had no fairy tales. It had real lessons often learned earlier than they should have been. It built a thick skin, a direct way of seeing the world, and a deep understanding of the cost of mistakes. When he later rapped about the streets, it was not a role, it was memory. Surviving that environment was not automatic. It was the result of countless small decisions, careful steps and days that passed without falling through the cracks. That harsh foundation became the core of who WC was, long before the world recognized him as a name in West Coast rap. The road to millions from the streets to platinum. WC did not enter the music industry with illusions. He entered with real contracts, real product, and numbers that could not be denied. In the late 80s, while many rappers were still pressing cassette tapes and selling them on the street, WC appeared in the group Low Profile and signed with Priority Records. The album We're In This Together was released in 1989. It was not a blockbuster, but it placed him inside a legitimate distribution system. From that point on, WC was no longer just a name confined to the neighborhood. He was in the market. After that, he formed WC and the Mod Circle. The album Ain't a Damn Thing Changed, released in 1991, through Hollywood Basic, earned him recognition in the West Coast underground scene. This was the stage where WC built his own brand independent of anyone else. By 1995, Curb Servin reinforced that position. He was no longer a rapper waiting for last-minute calls to open shows. He had product, a label, and a foothold. The real turning point came in 1996 when WC joined Ice Cube and Mack 10 to form Westside Connection. The album Bow Down was released through Priority Records and immediately debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. Approximately 1.7 million copies were sold in the United States, and the album was certified platinum by the RIAA. At that time, platinum meant selling 1 million physical records. That level of success generated tens of millions of dollars for the label. The exact split depended on contracts, but at this level, WC was no longer living off a few $1,000s per show. After Bow Down, the way people approached WC changed. Westside Connection had professional booking agencies' tour schedules planned months in advance and clearly structured performance contracts. Headlining rap groups in the late 90s and early 2000s could earn fees in the tens of thousands of dollars per night depending on market and event scale. Major festivals paid even more. This was a different tier compared to the era of scrambling for small gigs. In 2003, Westside Connection released Terrorist Threats and the album earned gold certification. That proved they were not a one-time success. Alongside the group, WC continued his solo career. The Shadiest One in 1998 debuted in the top 20 of the Billboard 200, showing he could sell records under his own name. Ghetto Heisman in 2002 maintained that position. WC's income came from multiple clear sources: physical album sales, radio, broadcast royalties, streaming royalties. As the market shifted to digital touring revenue in the United States, and internationally feature appearances on other artists' albums and licensing when his music was used in films or television programs. When you own a platinum album in your catalog, the money does not stop after the release year. It continues flowing for many years. Every time a song from Bow Down plays on the radio or appears in a nostalgia playlist, it is not just a West Coast memory. It is recorded royalty income. WC did not make money through short-lived hype. He made money through products that proved their value on charts and in sales. And as the cash flow changed, so did his position in the industry. The phone calls were no longer rushed invitations. They became partnership offers with schedules set in advance. The mansion of power. Money can sit in a bank account. Real power lives where you sleep. And in Los Angeles, the most expensive thing is not the car parked out front. It is the land beneath the house. In elite areas of LA, especially gated communities where entertainers and influential figures live, land prices can range from $3 million to $10 million, depending on size and location. You are not just buying a house. You are buying distance. You are buying separation. You are buying the right to not be disturbed. The gate opens quietly. No Vegas-style spectacle. No glowing signs. Just a heavy gate operated by controlled access, and behind it a driveway long enough to make noise someone else's problem. From the gate to the front door is a stretch of space that immediately tells you that you are no longer in South Central. Everything here is designed to create silence. Inside, the ceilings rise into a great room layout, where natural light floods through large glass panels. The space is not just large, it is calculated to project authority. Floors finished with premium materials. Interiors minimal but decisive. No clutter, no sense of temporary living. Some houses are built to be lived in. This one is built to control. The kitchen is not simply for cooking. A large island-sealed cabinetry, high-end appliances. A kitchen priced between $80,000 and $200,000 is not for frying eggs. It is for hosting, for closing deals, for showing that the owner no longer lives in scarcity. A home theater with investment ranging from $20,000 to $60,000 is where sound surrounds every sense. Once the door closes, the outside world is shut off. In that room, you are no longer WC of Westside Connection. You are the one controlling your space. A wine wall valued at $40,000 or more is not about showing off expensive bottles. It is a statement that your time is now measured in years of accumulation, not in days of constant alertness. Then there is the home studio, a space invested at $50,000 or more, fully soundproofed with professional acoustic treatment. This is the heart of the house. Microphones, control boards, professional monitor systems. Here, WC does not rent studio time by the hour. He owns his creative space. But what makes the house truly different is not what is visible. It is what lies beneath. Below the main level is an area that never appears on home tours. No windows, no natural light, no noise, thick walls, fully soundproofed. Not a bunker from an action movie, not a place to hide. It is not built for escape. It is built for thought. For someone who grew up where street noise could shape the entire day, silence becomes a luxury. That room represents transformation, from chaos to control, from reaction to intention. Security is the final layer of protection, and also the clearest marker of changed status. Gated entry is standard in these communities. Access control exists not for display, but to ensure no one enters without approval. Advanced surveillance systems are standard for mansions. And for someone who lived through the gang era, the presence of security personnel is not a symbol of power. It is a safety habit. Some people never see the guards, but the guards always see them. This mansion is not meant to impress outsiders. It is a physical boundary between past and present. From South Central to land worth millions of dollars is a journey few ever complete. Outside people may still call him a rapper from another era. But once the gate closes, once the noise is sealed off behind it, the house says something else. It says he did not just survive. He stepped into a different level of space, a level where everything operates by his rules. The supercar and bulletproof SUV collection. There was a time when WC's way of getting around might have been just a car good enough to get out of the neighborhood before things got complicated. But when status changes, the way you move changes with it. A vehicle is no longer just about getting from point A to point B. It becomes a symbol. It becomes a statement. It becomes the first layer of armor between you and the outside world. Among successful artists in Los Angeles, owning iconic vehicles is almost a given. The Porsche 911 is one of them, with market prices ranging from around $120,000 to more than $200,000. Depending on version and configuration, the 911 does not just represent speed, it represents having stepped into a different class. When the rear-mounted engine roars, it is not just mechanical noise, it is the sound of achievement. The Mercedes S-Class tells a different story. With prices starting at $110,000 or more, the S-Class does not show off like Italian supercars. Its luxury is quiet. Premium leather interiors, advanced entertainment, and safety systems. This is the kind of car for people who do not need to prove who they are. They just need to arrive. Then there is the G-Wagon, the iconic SUV of entertainers and influential figures. With prices starting at $140,000 or more, the G-Wagon is more than transportation. It is a squared, heavy block of metal that feels impenetrable. In Los Angeles, you see G-Wagons, parked in front of mansion studios and luxury hotels. It is a reminder that the owner is no longer in a vulnerable position. Some cars are bought for speed. Some are bought for the statement. A statement that you have crossed into a new chapter. A statement that you are no longer the kid who had to look over his shoulder every time he turned a corner. A statement that you now control your route. But for people who grew up in high-risk environments, the story does not stop at standard luxury vehicles. Among artists, entrepreneurs, and individuals who lived through volatile eras, the use of upgraded protective SUVs is not uncommon. This is not showmanship. This is defensive strategy. The armored vehicle market in the United States has grown steadily over the years. Models like armored Cadillac Escalades or armored Mercedes G-Wagons are offered by specialized security upgrade companies. Prices can range from $200,000 to $500,000 or more, depending on the level of protection and the base configuration. These vehicles still retain strong performance, often between 400 and 600 horsepower depending on the model, but are reinforced with additional protective layers to enhance occupant safety. The important thing is that not everyone needs this kind of vehicle, but there are people who, after living long enough in environments where risk was real, understand the value of preparation. Some vehicles are built for presidents, and some people live long enough to need them. The difference between a rising rapper and a seasoned artist is not just the number of hits, it is the level of defense they build around themselves. When you have witnessed violence not on a screen, but in real-life safety, stops being theoretical. it becomes a priority. A car collection in the case of an artist like WC does not just reflect wealth, it reflects a journey. From days of worrying about the neighborhood you were standing in to being able to choose between Porsche Mercedes or a high-end SUV. From figuring out how to escape dangerous areas to fully controlling how you appear in public. Luxury cars bring speed and attention. Armored SUVs bring stability. Both are symbols of someone who has traveled far from the starting point. When people see an artist stepping out of a high-end vehicle in front of a gated estate, it is easy to think it is just luxury. But for those who grew up in the harsh reality of South Central, every thicker layer of metal, every more advanced safety system carries its own meaning. It is not just money, it is transformation. No longer a kid figuring out how to survive night by night. Now a man capable of investing in speed and luxury and in his own protection. And in a world where power is often measured by the ability to protect oneself, a car collection is not just transportation. It is a declaration that the past no longer controls the present. A mountain of money that never runs dry. Some artists live off new hits. Some artists live off strategy. WC belongs to the second group. He does not need to appear every year with a chart-topping album to maintain financial stability. His cash flow is not loud, it is steady. And what makes that steadiness possible is the catalog. A music catalog is like prime real estate in the city center. You buy once, you generate returns for years. With an album like Bow Down that achieved platinum status and solo projects like the shadiest one that debuted in the top 20 of the Billboard 200, WC does not just own songs, he owns assets. Every time a track from the 1990s is replayed on the radio, added to nostalgia playlists, or streamed on digital platforms, royalties are recorded. They do not arrive in bursts, they arrive consistently. Audiences may forget new albums, but they do not forget an era. West Coast in the 1990s was not just music, it was identity, and WC was part of that identity. That is why when the old-school revival wave rises, when nostalgic hip-hop festivals are organized across the United States, and internationally names like Westside Connection do not need to convince anyone of their value. They already have history. Old-school revival shows are not filler performances. They are events marketed through audience memory. People who listened to Bow Down when they were young are now grown financially stable and willing to pay to relive part of their youth. And when an artist can perform songs that once charted on Billboard, the performance fee is no longer symbolic. It reflects status. Beyond performances, collaborations also help sustain cash flow. In rap, appearing on another artist's track is not just artistic support, it is brand strategy. A WC verse on the right project can generate direct income and reinforce long-term image. It is how he maintains presence without constantly releasing new albums. Outside the stage and studio, there is the entertainment back end. Artists who have lived through multiple industry eras often transition into advisory roles, networking, or participation in projects tied to television and film. Being part of the broader entertainment ecosystem expands revenue streams. It also keeps the name circulating in spaces beyond pure music. Another important factor is personal brand power. WC is not just a rapper. He represents a chapter of West Coast rap. His image story and history are assets. In the age of social media and streaming, personal branding carries independent value. Event appearances, interviews, participation in hip-hop documentaries all contribute to sustained income and visibility. The difference lies in management. Many artists make large sums in one period and then disappear. WC has lasted through multiple cycles because he does not rely entirely on a single income source. Catalog royalties provide the foundation. Performances bring direct cash flow. Collaborations and licensing add another revenue layer. Entertainment back-end roles open new doors. He does not need to chase the latest trends to remain valuable. His value lies in sustainability. When an artist owns products validated by sales and chart performance, they are no longer completely dependent on current market luck. They have history behind them. In a music world where fame can rise and fall quickly, longevity is the real measure. WC's cash flow was not built on a single explosion. It was built through strategic decisions, through protecting the catalog, through maintaining brand strength, and through understanding his own value in the industry. From the early days of searching for performance opportunities to the point where he can be selective about projects and partnerships, the journey is not just about money. It is about how an artist turns memory into assets, turns history into a foundation, and turns survival into a long-term strategy. The biggest controversy. When people talk about artists who came out of the gang era, they often expect a collapse, a court case, a shocking headline. One bad night that wipes out an entire career. But with WC, that never happened at the mainstream level. There was no explosive trial, no criminal record splashed across major headlines, and it is precisely that lack of anything overly dramatic that becomes the story. The most controversial thing associated with him is not legal. It sits inside, in the relationships between the members of Westside Connection. Westside Connection was not a random rap group. It was an alliance of three strong personalities, Ice Cube, Mack 10, and WC. When three voices representing different sides of the West Coast stand in the same lineup, friction is almost inevitable. The success of Bowdown pushed the group to the top, but the top always comes with pressure. After the peak, cracks began to appear in the relationships. Tensions mainly centered around Mack 10 and Ice Cube, eventually leading the group toward an effective split. WC was not the instigator of the conflict, but he stood in the middle, between two dominant personalities, between two opposing viewpoints. And in situations like that, silence itself can become a statement. From the outside, it might look like simple internal drama. But for a group that once represented an entire region, that fracture felt like a crack in a cymbal. Westside Connection never officially announced a breakup through a loud press conference. They simply appeared together less, collaborated less, mentioned each other less. WC did not choose public attacks. He did not jump into long verbal battles. But the group no longer functioning as it once did was something fans noticed. And in hip-hop, where loyalty and alliances carry real weight, every fracture leaves questions behind. Alongside internal conflict, another point of controversy revolves around gang affiliation imagery. WC's past association with the 111 neighborhood Crips has been mentioned in many writings about gang culture and hip-hop. For some audiences, that represents authenticity. For others, it is a dark mark that is hard to ignore. Gang-era imagery is always a double-edged blade. It brings credibility to the music, but it also forces the artist to live with judgment. When someone has already achieved success, wealth and status, the past can still be pulled back into the light as an unanswered question. WC does not deny his roots. He also does not exploit them for media shock. He keeps a measured distance. But the fact that he never fully detached from gang-era imagery means he is always viewed through that lens. Some artists manufacture scandals to stay visible. UC never did that. But having no major scandal does not mean living without pressure. His pressure lies in maintaining balance between past and present, between street identity and the position of a fully grown artist. And perhaps WC's biggest controversy is not a single event. It is the quiet fractures and the skeptical looks tied to his past. Not loud, but heavy enough to cast a shadow. In a world where many names collapse under scandal, the fact that an artist from the gang era avoided a major criminal case is already rare. But the cost of that calm is the constant need to prove that you are more than a product of the past. WC does not have a shocking headline. He has fractures in an alliance and a past that follows his name. And sometimes living with those things in silence is harder than facing a scandal that explodes in public. UC in 2026. In 2026, the name WC no longer appears constantly in headlines like it did in the 1990s. No loud press conferences, no public beefs setting social media on fire. And that silence speaks volumes. There is a kind of power that does not need to be displayed. It does not live in trending charts. It lives in the fact that you no longer need to prove who you are. WC in 2026 does not chase constant release cycles. He does not need to drop an album every year to remind the world of his existence. The world already knows. And those who truly understand the value of West Coast hip-hop still remember. He appears less often in mainstream media, not because he has been forgotten, but because he no longer needs the spotlight every day. In an industry where attention is often bought through controversy, maintaining a low profile becomes a strategic choice. Fewer shocking statements. Less participation in drama cycles, less presence in meaningless debates. WC's presence today is selective. When he appears at a hip-hop nostalgia event, audiences do not see him as an artist clinging to former glory. They see him as a piece of history stepping onto the stage. That distinction matters. Cash flow in 2026 does not come from sudden explosions. It comes from legacy. Music catalogs from the 1990s and early 2000s continue to be streamed. Recordings that once earned platinum and gold certifications still appear in playlists, radio programming, and West Coast cultural events. Royalties do not need noise. They need time. Beyond music, continued presence within the entertainment ecosystem also helps preserve value. His past involvement in supporting authentic street language for television projects shows that WC is more than a rapper. He understands the culture he represents. And understanding culture means remaining relevant even as the industry shifts. Living quietly does not mean retreating. It means controlling personal space. After years under lights and pressure, choosing a less exposed life is natural. Not everything needs to be posted. Not every asset needs to be displayed. Not every decision needs to be public. WC in 2026 is no longer the young man who had to look over his shoulder when stepping outside. He is also no longer the artist who needs to prove toughness to survive the rap game. He has lived through multiple industry cycles. He has watched many peers disappear. Some left the industry. Some fell into scandal. Some never got the chance to move into a new chapter. What remains with WC is not noise. It is stability. Stability in image. Stability in cash flow. Stability in position. When an artist reaches this stage, they stop chasing every trend. They choose when to appear. They choose collaborations when they make sense. There is a clear difference between fame and long-term value. Fame can arrive quickly. Long-term value takes years to build. WC in 2026 represents that kind of value. No need to shout for attention. No need to manufacture scandals to hold the spotlight. And perhaps the most important point is not where he is or what he owns. It is that he is still here. In a generation where the gang era took countless lives, surviving across decades is already an achievement. But survival alone is not enough. Some people died in the gang era. Some survived. But very few turned survival into an empire.
We encourage viewers to approach the content with an open mind, critical thinking, and to always cross-reference with multiple sources in order to form their own perspective. That's the reality of the game. Fame always comes with a price. If you vibe with the content and want the real uncut stories, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the Black Vault.